Hi, this is Shelly, and this is my YouTube channel AI Economics. I'm a professor of artificial intelligence, and I teach business managers, business management students, artificial intelligence concepts decoded for with a business lens. If you're interested in this kind of content, please do consider subscribing. Now, today's video is part of a sequence of videos that I am making where I am introducing artificial intelligence, how to make artificial intelligence applications to business management and general non-technical audience. Now, there are a lot of videos available on the YouTube in particular already on this topic. However, when I reviewed them, I found that they actually expected a fair amount of knowledge, which was expected before you could actually get going with those tutorials. And further, even if you somehow manage to actually create the tutorial, follow the tutorial and create whatever it is they wanted you to create, it would be very difficult for you to be able to figure out how to use this this technology and your specific applications. So in this sequence, I begin from the beginning. I very briefly overview the concepts of artificial intelligence that are required for making business applications of generative AI models. This is not an academic kind of series. This is a highly applied series where I guide you step by step through the concepts and then on to the coding, and hopefully by the end of it all you should have your application, and you should have followed through on the applications that I am proposing, and you should also be in a position to develop your own applications. So let's get to it. All right, so just let me briefly recap what is today's video. As I said, is about fine tuning. We are this is part 3 where we are actually we are basically reviewing what is fine tuning a general artificial intelligence model. Now, what is the need for fine tuning? This is something which I had actually talked about in my last video. I include the link in the notes. However, just very briefly, one of the key problems that corporates face when they want to use artificial generative AI models is the problem of hallucination. Now, hallucination is essentially the tendency of the models to give a factually incorrect response to a query. Now, this is a huge issue for any corporate. Nobody really wants a chatbot which is, kind of making up answers as in response to customer queries. Now, just to understand briefly why this happened, let's first understand that what are these models. These models are trained on hundreds of GB of data. Approximately, for example, 570 GB for Chatgpt 3.5. This is all public data coming from the common crawl, basically your websites, Reddit forums, Wikipedia, etc. There is an attempt by companies such as Google and OpenAI and Anthropic to clean this data. However, given its sheer size and volume, you may imagine that this may be it may not be possible to do it in a very, very squeaky clean fashion. Now, this essentially after this, this is what is known as pre-training your model. On the basis of this training, you essentially get a massive model such as Chatgpt 3.5, which had 175 billion parameters. Now, of course, the new models, the new Chatgpts and the Gemini models, etc., are much larger. But coming to the key problem, the model has strong language understanding. So if you type in a query, it can definitely answer the query in some fashion. However, it often fails to be accurate in its responses as it uses its generalized knowledge base to answer questions. Now, what does this mean essentially? Now, think about it. It's literally like, if you're a company and a new employee joins the company and you depute it depute that new employee who knows literally nothing about your brands and your processes and all the stuff that makes your company, and that person is deputed to answer very critical questions. Obviously they're not going to do a very good job. Similarly, the model also is just using its generalized knowledge and is therefore not going to be able to be very accurate. There were two workarounds for this hallucination problem that have been developed. The first was fine-tuning and the second was retrieval augmented generation. Fine-tuning is a far more expensive, slow process, and a RAG, on the other hand, is a much faster and more efficient and cost-effective process. Therefore, it is likely to be more popular. However, it is important for you to understand what is fine-tuning, so that in case somebody asks you why we cannot fine-tune a model, you should be able to answer that. So anyway, proceeding on, we first look at how does fine-tuning work. Now, essentially, a large language model is essentially a very gigantic neural network, and it has thousands and millions of layers. Now, each earlier layers in the large language model essentially capture the general understanding of the language. This, of course, is acquired through the massive pre-training process. The final layers, that is the topmost layers, are responsible for the model's specific outputs and decision. So it is these layers which are retrained and that enable the LLM to adapt its understanding and responses to a new task or domain. So for example, we could fine-tune the model with a legal data corpus. That would enable it to actually be far more useful when it came to answering very technical legal questions. Another example could be training it on a very detailed pharma data bank. Again, this will enable it to be of far greater assistance to pharma people in a pharmaceutical company. Now, how does fine-tuning help with hallucinations? Fine-tuning basically, as I said, you take the last few layers of the large language model, retrain them on your specific corpus. Now, all this means is that now the model has acquired your domain-specific knowledge and is therefore able to answer questions in a far more intelligent fashion. By based on responses which are specific to information that is relevant to your company. This schematic shows it very briefly. First, you have a gigantic data set of books, Wikipedia, Reddit, etc. This is the pre-training process and results in a base LLM. For further fine-tuning on a very domain-specific corpus results in a fine-tuned LLM. And it is this fine-tuned LLM which is able to take in a query from an end user and give a far more relevant answer. What are the benefits and cons of fine-tuning? Now, a major pro of fine-tuning is that the model acquires domain-specific knowledge. It therefore becomes more accurate at tasks requiring specialization, such as medical and legal analysis. And its responses in general are more precise and contextual to a specific domain. And it can also be adapted for very specific workflows. However, there are significant cons associated with fine-tuning. The first is data privacy and security risks. When you fine-tune a model which is essentially owned by OpenAI, it also means that OpenAI in some way becomes privy to your data. Now, the company has guaranteed some firewalls, but if for example you have very high risk information which you would not like leaked, this would still be a bit risky. The second thing is it has very high computational resource requirements, and not just computational resource requirements, it also requires a very advanced team. So that means you've literally got to set up and recruit a team of very advanced artificial intelligence engineers and scientists. It also requires a lot of time. Further, it requires the availability of a large, high quality, domain specific data set. Now, this may or may not be available again. So, another problem which is going to be there is that ongoing updating to stay relevant may not be feasible. Fine tuning can at best take place a few times a year. So essentially, the whole process becomes extremely expensive. This is one of the reasons why fine tuning as an option is something that only a few companies, essentially very large companies or companies where which are very, very conscious of data security, only these companies are considering it. The bulk of companies find this option to be rather on the expensive side. So, this was fine tuning. I hope you liked this video. I just very briefly explained to you a very complex concept, which is fine tuning. I've explained it in terms of the key takeaways that you really need to know as a business person. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, as it helps with the algorithm. Also subscribe to my channel AI Economics. Look forward to seeing you in my next video.